Good evening and welcome to the town of Newmarket, February 1st. Winter is just flying by. Town council meeting. Call it to order at 7:03. And the first item on the agenda will be to say that Brian Morrison is in the process of moving and will be late if he comes in tonight at all. That was a phone call I received earlier this afternoon. And the next item is Pledge of Allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item, public forum. Non-agenda items only, and I believe, well, before I do public forum, I'd like to introduce to the rest of the board our new downtown coordinator, Julie Glover. Julie, this is Councilor Wilfred Hamill, Councilor Dana Glennon, Councilor Jen Jarvis, Councilor Jerry Hamill, and Councilor Brian Hart.
Hello.
Brian Morrison is absent tonight. And Julie's been here this week, correct? It's been your first week? And she's kind of getting to know everything. I guess you've done a lot of touring, correct? Had a lot of conversations with people.
Where have you located your office?
On the third floor of the finance.
Okay. Good, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for her, or?
She's gonna be working hard, that's all I know. Very hard, just keep an open mind and stick to your guns.
Thanks, Julie, for coming in. Okay, the next item, public forum. Mr. Porterata, you have the mic.
I'm Ed Porterata. I live on Exeter Road, Newmarket. A long-time resident of Newmarket. In fact, after World War II, when I was discharged, I met my girlfriend here in Newmarket, and I married her and stayed here. Because I was originally from Massachusetts, went through the system there. On 108, I think Mr. Dixon will know that I went through the water board and everything else because we have very low water pressure. By that I mean is, and the person from the water department was there when I called him, and we put the water on in the bathroom, in the sink, in the kitchen. There was just a pencil coming out, that's all. Now, the reason for this might be, we're on the tail end of that water tank anyway, because there's a 10-inch line going to the industrial park, the 10-inch line going to the Hershey Lane. And we have an 6-inch line that's been there for many years. And according to the water specialist there, he said that 6-inch line is probably a 4-inch line because it's coated, corroded, and everything else. And the result of the finding was that it would cost too much money to put a line up through there, because the woman next door has the same problem, but she lives alone, so she'd have no problem because she only puts one at a time, you know. And he said it would cost too much money, and for me, what to do was to get a plumber, put a pump in with a holding tank and all that, which I know why I want to do that, because if I stay here, maybe I will, but I don't know. Now, recently, I understand they might bought some land on Rockingham to try to golf course to put a school in there, saying, well,
We
they
haven't
got,
purchased it yet. The voters got to decide that.
that?
It hasn't been purchased
I
yet.
know that. I went to the last night to the meeting, as this gentleman knows. And they claim, well, they get the water line, they get the sewer line. Well, the sewer line only goes to the top of the hill and stops, that's it. And I don't think I want to bring the school matter into this because we had the discussion yesterday, and all I'm saying is that if it comes that they're going to they need a sewer line or water line, who's going to pay for that, to put that systems in there? The school or the town?
The school, I think, would be probably responsible
Is
for
that in
doing
your
it.
agenda for cost?
I'm going to speak to everything you're saying, Ed, so go ahead and finish your comments, and I'll try to answer your concerns.
Because right now, you know, you take water from me, and I'll be in worse shape.
Well, we'll have Chris answer the questions
And
regarding
also,
that.
it's terrible traffic there too, 'cause I'm coming, as Mr. Dixon knows, I mean, you go into my driveway, your bottom of your car's gonna hit. For the simple reason the town's been tiring the state's been tiring and tiring, and then made it higher at the curve there. When I gotta come in on an angle, or if I come in straight, the bottom of my rear end hits, because, and I had the state come in, some young gentleman, and he wasn't very cooperative. He said, well, it costs money and this and that, and I can't put a culvert there because it'd be too high and some car will come along and hit that and that's it, an accident, you know what I mean? And so for me to retire it again, I don't know, but he wouldn't be no help at all. Mr. Dixon said he was gonna talk to him, but he never did, I guess.
I did.
Huh?
I did.
You did?
I didn't have any more influence than you did.
Well, the woman next door made a complaint. Now we got bales of hay on that side. I don't know if you've been going down that road. The washout, the sand's been going down, making a gully in there. You mean we can't do something about this? I mean, that's another thing. I see there's bales of hay in front of my house there. It looks terrible. Anyway, getting back to the traffic. If and when this thing passes and anything else, are they gonna have to put a light there? Because some of the traffic in the morning is backed up down to the police station sometime because it's so slow because of the light up by Newfield. I mean, the traffic on that road is terrible. I mean, there's been a lot of fatalities, a lot of accidents down by the rock, the health center and all that. There's always somebody hitting each other down there, you know what I mean? And we can't reduce the speed limit there because the town had no control over it, and when I brought it up to the state there, in Durham there, that's the way it is, 40 miles an hour. And that's another thing. Are these things all gonna be taken care of or what? I'm just saying that, it's gonna be something to think about. Because right now, you know there's 18-wheelers going back and forth into the industrial park, and the tires are always screeching there, trying to get out of there and beat the traffic. I mean, I don't know if any thought's been given to this road at all in that area, because it is bad. And a lot of times, even the next door neighbor, not Mrs. Harron, but some of the other one there, they slow down to go into their driveway, and somebody's tooting the horn, and pardon the language, they give them a certain finger, and everything else, insultations and everything else. I brought this up before, but nothing's done. And that's all I've got to say. I'm just trying to curious about anybody thought about the expense of putting all this in for these school if it ever passes there or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that's all I got to say. Any comments from you people?
I think because a lot of your questions were related to any construction that may happen on 108, with the exception of the hay bales. And Al, were you aware that there were hay bales down there?
No, I made a note. I'll talk to Doug DePorter in the morning, see what that's all about.
All right. He'll find out.
They've been
Al,
there for some time.
Yeah, I know
They've
some.
been out there for some time.
See, also,
Hay bales.
the woman next door to me, I think it's Harriman, she went to the Durham, to the road agent there and everything else, because what happens is the sand goes onto her driveway and it gathers there. And when she wants to come out, you gotta get on one way fast. And what happens is the front wheel drive, wheels spin. Sometimes then she shoots out. I'm just saying, something's gotta be done. I don't know what's the matter with the state, but she went to them too, and they wouldn't satisfy her answers either. So they put the bales of hay there. Okay, that's it.
thank you, Mr. Porterata. Is there anyone else for public comment? None? Then I'll close the public forum. The next item on the agenda is town council to consider acceptance of minutes at January 4th business meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes? So moved. Counselor Jarvis, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Wilfred Hamel. Are there any changes? Counselor Hart?
Is that working?
Nope,
Okay. It wasn't working here either.
that's good for me.
On page 4, right above the line separating the town administrator's report, two things. One is, well, one thing, Nancy Gregora is Rigora, like rug, O-R-A is how it's spelled. And that's the only thing I saw.
Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, can we vote on the minutes as amended? Administrator Dixon, can you call the roll?
Counselor Hart.
Aye.
Counselor Jerry Hamel. Counselor Will Hamel.
Aye.
Counselor Glennon.
Aye.
Counselor Jarvis.
Aye.
Counselor Caprioli.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's it for minutes. Next item is school department update. Chris Hawkins.
Hi. First thing I want to talk about is why what's being proposed on the golf course site is going to help Mr. Porterato's water situation. And also talk about the money involved in that. The engineers that we have, and I hope the microphone can still pick me up, Appledore Engineering, has already met with George Laney, right, George? And talked a little bit about what the concept is for the water. We'll come around to this side so people in the audience can see. The basic concept, as I understand it, is there is a 6-inch line here, as Ed mentioned, and the concept is to bring a line in from Lady Slipper, which is right over in this area, bring a 10-inch line across the site, all the way across the site to an area roughly in front of Great Bay Athletic Club, and tie into the 4-inch main at that point, and basically create a loop, which will increase overall water pressure in the line, because we need the pressure to run sprinklers. The money for that is already in the budget for the school project, and it's around $250,000 as I understand it, which we regard as a pretty good deal for what we're getting for our money. So water pressure in this area overall will be increased, and Mr. Porterato's water pressure situation should improve. That's basically the idea. As far as the sewer goes, there's a couple of different concepts floating around, and the engineers are in the process of discussing that with Mr. Laney and other people from the town. And I think Frank Underwood is somewhat involved in those discussions as well. I don't want to jump the gun, but that's all under discussion. And more importantly, the money for all that is already in the budget. What we're going to do is going to be done within the framework of that budget. It's not like we haven't, the school board hasn't taken a formal position on that, but I strongly suspect that we're going to do what needs to be done within the scope of the budget. As far as traffic goes, obviously that's a very big concern. The concept, if you just take a look at this, is to create a left turning lane coming north on 108. Thank you, Fritz. And then have a deceleration lane in this area. If we acquire the site, we have the ability to widen out here if necessary. The engineers have already had preliminary discussions with DOT. They're on board with this central location for the entrance and exit. Obviously, a big concern, and Ed's brought it up, and he's darn right, is to get traffic off of 108 as fast as possible. So what's going to happen on this site is there's going to be 3 separate things you can do. For people who are coming in to drop off their kids, they're going to enter here, drive along this road, and turn around and circle back this way. There are 30 marked spaces, drop-off spaces. There's also 30 short-term visitor parking spaces. So if you say that space is 30 cars, there's another 30 there, and another 30 there, there's basically storage on the site for 90 cars for dropping kids off, which we think is more than adequate to keep traffic from backing up onto 108. School buses are going to enter here, come down this way, and then there's designated bus drop-off points here for the middle school, and then separate drop-off points for the high school. So buses and cars aren't going to be intermingled. Those areas are going to be separated. For a child who's driving to school, a junior or senior in high school, they're going to pass along here and park in this area. This parking that you see here, this is going to be eliminated. We're cutting back on the number of parking spaces because there's something like 800 in this plan, and we think that's a little bit over the top or way over the top. So this is being cut back a bit. There's going to be more than is strictly necessary for the school, so that when you have events and things, you're going to have a little bit of extra parking. This area, this parking is going to be backed out of this little bit of wetland here, and this is just going to be an undesignated green space. It's going to stay the way it is. That's the plan. This track and this field are not going to be done. Those are going to be future. These basketball and tennis courts are not going to be done. That's going to be future, if the town chooses to do so. So that's, you know, this is, the discussions are going on to work out some of the issues that Ed has addressed. We're very conscious of them. And hopefully, you know, people will benefit from that. So that's a quick rundown on that. A quick rundown on what's going on with the site, utilities, safety, parking, things like that. I actually drew this on the board last week, but this is really helpful because I want to talk about cost for a minute and how we're funding this thing. Up until very recently, we were talking in terms of a conventional bond product, which is like a mortgage, where you start off paying, front-loading your interest, and then you pay level principal $500,000 a year over time, and your rate gradually drops down after 30 years to around 41 cents, not 0.041, 0.41. That was pretty tough because it really hammers the people who are here now, and the people who come later don't have to pay nearly as much, don't feel as much of the brunt. We came up with a product called the Capital Appreciation Bond, in which instead of paying more in the beginning and then gradually declining, you pay basically level. It's $221 in the first full year. This is a 25-year product, not a 30-year product. It drops down to about $1.80, and then it increases about 1 or 2 or 3 cents a year after that. So you're paying roughly the same at the end as you do in the beginning. The total payment over the life of the thing is higher, but it does allocate the burden a little more equitably among the people who are paying now and the people who pay 10, 20 years from now. They're going to come in, they're going to pay the same rate. It's not ideal, it's not cheap, but it reduces this big hammer impact in the beginning. And so this is what the school board is committed to do, the capital appreciation bond, to try to spread this cost a little more equitably. And again, I'm not trying to pretend that it's not a lot of money, because it is. But I think you're going to get tremendous value for your money. One of the other big comments we heard last night was concern about the building, the layout of the building. That's obviously all stuff that we look at all the time, and they're happy to have comments on that. And that's something that also gets worked out through the design process and finalized in the end. So that's basically a quick rundown of where we're at now. We've got deliberative session a week from yesterday, and then the vote on March 14th. I know that people are going to turn out and vote, and I'm always hopeful for the best. Are there any questions?
Dana?
Thanks, Chris, for that presentation. One question I have, has the school board or the school administration at all given any thought, such as what the council has just recently done with this young lady coming on board, to have a project coordinator to handle the school from start to finish and make sure? I guess Exeter did it, and it worked out extremely well. He was very, very tough and wouldn't let one penny be spent until he got the price he wanted.
Yeah.
Has any thought been given to that?
Absolutely. One of the, I don't know if you call it good fortune, it's never particularly good fortune having a lawyer around, but one of my areas of professional specialty is construction contracts and construction litigation. And so I'm kind of aware of these kind of issues. We have been talking for some time now. The way to execute a project like this is to have a clerk of the works who is basically an employee of the district, not an employee of the contractor or the architect, who comes in and kind of watches the construction as it progresses, makes sure that you're getting what you're paying for, makes sure that the contractor is complying with specifications, and they're there every day. Like you had in the Phase 3 project. You had an engineer from Underwood Engineering who was down there making sure the guys were doing what they were supposed to do, that all the proper equipment was being installed and the proper techniques were being used. So yes, a clerk of the works is an absolute essential. We've been in touch with the guy who was the clerk of the works in Exeter. I've personally been in touch with the guy who's the clerk of the works at the Stratford County Jail project. Just I met him at a seminar that I was giving on construction contracts, and we just kind of talk about stuff. So we definitely have that in mind. That comes in more, if we pass on March 14th, then that's something that comes to the forefront.
Okay.
It's not critical at this stage, but you want to get that person involved kind of in the design phase so they have a knowledge and they come in and they hit the ground running. That's definitely something we have in mind and we would insist on doing to make sure you get value for your dollar.
So that's all part of the budgeting process,
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's rolled into the price.
Thank you.
Jen?
I've got 3 questions for you, Chris. The first one has 3 parts, and it's about accreditation.
Wow.
Will the new facility meet state accreditation standards? Will the curriculum be enhanced in the new school to meet accreditation standards? And will the school board be seeking accreditation?
Yeah. And I've got 4 answers to your 3 questions.
Okay.
To your 3 subparts. There's state accreditation, and then there's independent accreditation. The current facility is state accredited, and you have to work really hard to lose your state accreditation, because if the state disaccredited your facility, that would imply they were taking responsibility for it in some way, which the state of New Hampshire will never do. So we are state accredited, and we obviously will continue to be state accredited. The current facility, however, we're never going to be eligible for independent accreditation. What that does for you is give you a little bit of cachet, and part of the thought process, I don't know personally to the extent to which this is valid, probably a better question directed to the superintendent, but the thought is that if you have independent accreditation where you've gone through a rigorous peer review process and your kids are at a building at a facility that's been through the accreditation process and the program has been accredited, then it makes it easier for them to get into better colleges. That's part of the thought process. In terms of curriculum enhancement, that's something we're doing regardless. We're trying to do regardless of what happens with the facility. The superintendent and our team and the teachers are really working hard to turn over every rock and take a look at our program from the ground up and look at how we're doing things all the time. And can we do things better or smarter? Can we offer better programs, more programs? The fact of the matter is, the reality of the matter is that we're at 95% capacity in this building, and there's no spare classroom. There's no spare space in the building to add a program. It's a simple fact. We have teachers who teach off of carts. They have all the teaching materials on a cart and they roll it from room to room. We've got 5 science teachers, 3 full-time, 2 part-time, and 3 classrooms. So 2 of them have to find somewhere to work in between periods, which makes it very hard for them to prepare. It's obviously, it's the same theory as the downtown renovation, right? The theory is that if you spend the money on it, the value will come back to you at some point. You'll get increased values. It's the same theory in the school. If we have a facility that's better suited to modern teaching techniques, where we have the room and we have the ability, without adding teaching staff, to offer more programs, then you're going to get a better product. Otherwise, why would you do it? So we're not planning on rolling out the same curriculum in a new facility. We're planning on revising the curriculum and looking at everything from the ground up. That's answer 3 to question 2. Your third question was, if I can't speak for the school board, as long as I'm on the school board, I'm a strong advocate of going through the independent accreditation process. It's a year-long, rigorous process where you have to prove the validity of your program. You have to prove that your facility is adequate. And you have to show that you've got your act together. I think it's good for the teachers to go through a rigorous peer review process. I think it's healthy for all of us to be critiqued by people who are professionals in our same area. So my personal view is that we go for it. First, we want to get into the building, and we want to, we need to shake it down a bit, shake out whatever the kinks are, and then roll ahead and keep moving this thing forward.
Thanks.
You have 2 more questions.
I do. The tax rate sheet that was passed around last night at the school facilities meeting represents the dollar amount in addition to the 11.7 tax rate solely for the repayment of the new facility and the bond for the land acquisition.
Mhm.
What has been formulated, or are there any numbers out there for the additional or the anticipated operational costs for this new facility?
I can't tell you what the operating costs are going to be for the new facility because I don't know exactly what it's going to consist of. So I can't tell you it's going to be X dollars. That would be, I can't tell you that.
Right.
What I
And-
can tell you is that the state requires us, and I think it's smart, as a condition of receiving state aid, to submit a maintenance plan. We have to show that we have a plan in place to maintain the facility and allocate sufficient resources to keep the building in shape. But I can't tell you at this point exactly what it's going to cost to operate the new facility. I don't know at this point.
The last one's pretty easy. Has the board looked at the buses coming in on Ash Swamp as opposed, because there is that other access off of Ash Swamp,
Yeah.
which would limit the buses and the cars pulling in off of 108?
Yep. We've had some discussion about it. The purpose of this access is to be a gated crash gate access. One of the things the state really requires as a condition of approving aid for your site is to have two separate means of access to the site. So if there's an incident up here and fire and police can't get through, they can crash the gate here. We've had some discussion among ourselves on, gee, during the peak hours, can we open this gate? I don't know the answer to that. That's something we need to talk about with the fire chief and the police chief, and if that's something that's viable or doable. It would have the effect during peak hours of pulling more cars into Ash Swamp Road. We need to think that through. But it is something that we have considered, and it's just under discussion at this point.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Anybody else? Brian?
Has there been any thought, building on that, in terms of having the intersection of the school access point there and then having Ash Swamp Road still only a few hundred yards away? Seems not exactly ideal. And what about having, this would obviously require the town and the state approving it, having, cutting off Ash Swamp Road down at the end of the bridge, so there's no access point there. It's a dead end there, but then right where your crash gate thing is you build a new road that goes adjacent to the school and provides an access point for the residents off of that, and then is the main entrance to the road where you have the entrance to the school.
I'm not sure I followed all that, Brian, to tell you the honest
Basically,
truth.
the
Can you show me what
the
you're talking-
gated access becomes a road, and Ash Swamp doesn't intersect 108 farther down.
Okay, you want to dead end Ash Swamp Road.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that does for the Rockingham Ballroom.
Well, it doesn't dead end it. It just changes how you get there.
Yeah, the purpose of having the gated access here is to prevent cars from cutting through. You know, we would prefer not to have this be a town road or a state road and have cars cutting through the site. I mean, that's why this is a gated access primarily. It's not safe. And I didn't mention, Ed mentioned, and he's darn right, that this intersection down around where the country club is now is pretty complicated. This would be sealed off. You would not be able to drive off of 108 or Ash Swamp Road into this anymore. This would be curbed off.
Into the ballroom?
Not into the ballroom, into the current country club.
Yeah.
So that would be cut off, and hopefully that'll simplify that area a little bit. That's certainly DOT is interested in. If you want to put an access here, you got to cut this off here.
Yeah.
And there's a little driveway that cuts down to the maintenance shed now. That would be eliminated. That shed would probably be eliminated also. I'm not sure at this point. But I don't know about that, Brian. I haven't thought about it. That'd be a pretty radical change. I'm not sure Martha McNeil would be happy about it, but making her happy is a big priority of mine. So.
And she's watching, because we
I know
have to
she
say
is.
goodnight to her tonight.
She knows she's a good person. I'm not sure I'm still not sure I've understood completely what you're saying.
Okay,
or that I've responded to it.
It just seems like you're gonna have hundreds of cars at a certain point going there, and then hundreds of cars coming off Ash Swamp Road because people do that anyway. Having a combined point is what DOT likes. It's also safer for traffic, and if you ever have to put a light there in the future, you have one place instead of two to deal with.
Yeah.
So that's all. And I don't think it would be an issue for students crossing that road because it would be as busy as Ash Swamp is, which is not, I mean, it's busy, but you have a straight shot, so you could get to the athletic fields without worrying about kids crossing 108, for example.
And I'm still not 100% certain I understand exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
but it doesn't sound right to me.
Well, you've been looking at this a lot more. This came to mind because of the
We don't,
proximity
we
of the-
really, really don't want people cutting through here gratuitously, just to shortcut this corner. That doesn't seem like a smart thing to do to me. The other thing I forgot to mention before, Ed mentioned it, the prospect of a light. DOT doesn't want to put a light here. They might put a flashing yellow light, but there's not going to be, I don't believe, I'm not an engineer, that there's going to be a light there.
That's good.
And the other issue is speed, Ed talked about. If there's going to be a school here, there's necessarily going to be reduced speed through this area. That comes with the school. Whether it's 30 or 25, I don't know. But it's not going to be, the speed limit is going to be reduced in this area. It's necessary. So, in any event. This is also a little bit of an older plan. These fields have been shifted around. The baseball field is over here, these fields are over there. And, but it's, it's just a concept in any event. Wilfred, did you have a question?
Thank you.
I'm positive I didn't answer your question because I still didn't understand.
That's okay. I can show it to you later.
Okay.
You can tell me it's not a good idea then.
Your idea,
Jen, did you have
I have one
you're
more.
one of the 40 under 40. All your ideas are great.
What about a back entrance that goes directly into the student parking? So that the students
Yeah.
wouldn't have to come through, so that would reduce all the traffic on 108 of students that were parking their cars in there.
Ash Swamp Road is down here. This is privately owned
People's
property.
houses.
Yeah, this is
So
privately
we
owned
couldn't get
property.
in down there.
And
Okay.
as you move this way, this is very, very wet in here.
Yeah.
This is I think the Hauschel, the old Hauschel farm property. This area is pretty nice upland, but this is extremely wet. This wetland goes down into this area. So A, there's a lot of private property in here, and B, there's a lot of wetland in here. I just don't, we also, 2 access points is good. 3, 4, you get into a control. In my mind, I'm not an engineer, you get into a problem of who's coming and who's going.
Well, if it is really 2 access points, it sounds like it's 1 access point,
Well, it's
but 1
it's
emergency access point.
Correct. It's 1 access point, 1 emergency access point, as it's conceived. Because, again, we really don't want people to cut this corner by driving through the school site.
Right.
It's just not safe.
Mr. Porterata, did you want to ask Mr. Hawkins a question?
No, not too much that, but there's one other problem with that 108.
Mhm.
You have, and believe me, I see a lot of cars shoot up from Newmarket going,
Yes.
and you have that hill there, it's a blind corner
Mhm.
or curve. And boy, some of those cars, they zip bingo, but there's no cars there, they go very fast. I'm just saying that there's gonna be some control if that ever passes, because there's gonna be a lot of traffic, by right, we should have a bypass on 108, Biden, Newmarket and all that, but it's not there.
Mhm.
But that's a blind corner, there's been a lot of accidents on that little hill there.
Mhm.
3 or 4 vans lined up on a knoll over there, there's been some deaths over there, going fast, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And they're gonna have to control something there, control the speed, I love that, because, I can get out of my driveway sometime, but I'm just saying that between 2:30, 7:30, it's bumper to bumper.
Mhm.
Forward and back, that's the worst part, and the state, no way you could work with the state to maybe bypass a little of that area?
Well, there's a whole plan to bypass 108 entirely, move it to the other side of the railroad
Oh,
tracks.
no, you're taking that hill down,
I don't know the answer to that. I can say,
better vision anyway.
yeah, I can't, this is selected because it's roughly halfway between this bridge and this elbow. That's the best you can do with the sight line in that area. If there's a reduction in speed, and I would certainly anticipate the first, and this is something we gotta talk to the chief of police about, and maybe the state police about also, people learn. If you put a police car out there during peak periods for a week or a couple of weeks, they're gonna learn that I can't speed through this area, because you probably have the same the basic same core of 15,000 people driving through this area on a daily basis. And they're gonna figure out that there's a school there.
The only thing I suggest, don't put a sidewalk there, because they'll be picking up the kids one by one.
I agree with you, Ed. We're gonna actively discourage kids from walking on 108. We're not gonna, and we don't have to add, we know that we have 70 walkers coming to the building, coming to our current facility. There's not gonna be nearly as much walking to this building if there's any, but our current 5 buses have sufficient excess capacity to absorb 70 kids without having to add an additional bus run. We've already researched that and checked that out. So we've tried to do our homework. That doesn't mean it's perfect or it's cheap, but we've tried to think a lot of this stuff through. So.
Dana, last question.
Yep, last question. Chris, where the ball fields are,
Mm-hmm.
and then the parking area, the orange area, so if there's a ball game going on, everybody is gonna be parking in that orange space, right? Well, not orange space, I'm sorry.
You're talking
On the
about-
left to the orange space, the parking lot, yeah.
Oh, no, this is 281 spaces here.
Oh, okay, those are parking
This is
spaces.
intended to be, staff and kind of long-term visitor parking. The student parking, which is really what, and again, you gotta kind of cut that off in your mind, because that's gonna be cut way down. This is this is the high school,
Mhm.
so this is really for the high school students, and for if there's event parking. And then there's 30 spaces up in this area. So we anticipate that when there's events and ball games, people will park in this area here.
Okay.
Uh,
Now, if the students park further in the student parking lot to attend those games, that road going in there, in between the ball fields and the parking, is there a sidewalk attached to that?
I believe so. It's not shown on this plan, but I believe so, because we have talked
That'd
about.
be a good idea to put one there.
Yes.
For them to be walking on the sidewalk to get to that.
That's just a detail I don't have in my mind, but I believe so.
I just happen to be sitting here thinking, how they gotta get to and from there without.
The other
getting hit.
thing that's great, that's advantageous about this site is the country club building. There's a little cinder block storage building here. These are reusable. There's already bathrooms in this building, makes a great concession stand. You can put locker rooms in there. And this building is perfect for storing your lawnmowers and your outdoor equipment, which actually allows us to pull a little bit of space out of the building, where you might have to store that stuff in the building. We can now put it out here closer to where it's going to be used.
Is the house gonna disappear?
We're looking for ideas about what to do with the house.
How
I
about
don't-
putting the SAU in there?
Well, I'm sure Al would love that. The problem is that our overhead profile in this building is so low for our SAU that you'd really increase your SAU cost by moving into that building. A couple of concepts we kicked around, and I'm happy to hear ideas, is, gee, you could lease this house to some teachers or some staff people. You could lease this out to some nonprofit organization or organizations who'd like to have some space. Maybe there's some nonprofit childcare agencies in town. I know there are.
Conference rooms?
Or I don't know. There's lots of things you could do with it. We'd hate to sell it because the town will have paid so much to get their hands on the property that we'd hate to sell it. But we're just considering a lot of stuff. This, frankly, if we can bite off this nut, I'm not so worried about taking care of that little piece.
Well, I asked that for a couple of reasons. One of them is my aunt and uncle owned that house at one time.
Oh, really? Before the Hauschels? And before the
Long
Bogases?
before them. It was the Ashburners.
Well, if you want to make us an offer on a lease,
Yeah, let
I'm
me
sure
write
that
you a
we take
check
it under
right now.
advisement.
Let me write you a check right now.
Feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, next item, preliminary design water improvements, tank, George Laney.
Night last night.
Good night, Mr. Porterata, thank
night.
you.
Thank you for coming.
I guess it's just a continuation from last meeting, and I got a proposal from Underwood of $12,000 to move forward with the preliminary design of water improvements.
Great,
Which
this, we just need to motion this to proceed, right?
Yeah, action required is a motion to.
This is just a design concept. It's gonna cost us $12,000 to draw something.
Well, no, they're gonna be looking at the location of the
Okay, so it's more
tank up in
inclusive than
Great
that.
Hill. They're gonna be looking at the size of the line on the Durham side and the impact of building that tank and the pressure.
They're gonna be looking at the 20-year build-out of
It's all right.
population.
Okay, so it's everything we talked about last time,
It's everything.
and they're coming up with a cost
Everything on the
now.
memo from them in our packet.
On the second page.
Yeah, I read that, but when you said design, at first I thought just the structure.
This is not design.
This is not design and structure at all.
Preliminary design water improvements. My mistake.
So, is there a motion to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract with Underwood Engineering in the amount of $12,000 for the water system improvements, tank and transmission line?
So moved.
Thank you, Counselor Jarvis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Wilford Hamel. Any discussion?
Yes,
My lights aren't, these aren't working.
My button's not working.
mine isn't
Did
either.
I kick it out? It's not working.
Oh.
Hold-
Trying to silence us, eh?
Yeah.
It's working, I guess.
Try it now, see if that works.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Counselor Hart.
I just have a question. One is, well, where the money's coming out of the enterprise fund,
Yes.
and the second question is, it says that one of the things they're going to do is develop the 20-year and build out projections on the population. We already did that in the last 4 years. that
We've
I've
done
been-
several of them through the water and sewer departments, but we've never met the projections that they've come up with. So what we're looking for is sizing of the tank. We
Right.
said 800,000, but we need to find out really what size we do need to build, because we've had studies that say we need 1 million gallons to 2 million gallons, so.
Right, I understand that we need to figure out how much water, but I don't think we need to have them determine how many people are going to be in town again on the water system when we already paid them to do that once.
I
within
think
the
they're
last
just gonna
years.
collect that. That's just collection of data, really.
Very minor.
Okay.
Counselor Glennon?
You know, the one thing that I would like to see included in, and this is the authorization, okay, is on the back page, it says engineer will not exceed the budget without written authorization, but it doesn't say from who. I'd like to have that added as by the council.
Well, it'd have to be the town administrator, if you authorize the town administrator to sign the contract, and then it comes back to the council.
But if it's in there, we know it. I'd like to see that added.
Did you, so you wanted to say, will not exceed the budget without written authorization from the town administrator?
But the town administrator and the council has to approve it too.
Oh, yeah, it
Right.
it automatically goes
But
back
I
to
think
you.
if it's there, I feel a lot more comfortable with it.
So we just request an addendum
Okay.
amendment, provision of that. To include no overdraft of the 12,000 without approval from the town administrator. Obviously, I come back to you because it's
Right.
a contract.
Okay.
Counselor Jerry Hamel? You must have hit it on accident when I plugged it in. Oh, okay. All right, any further discussion? Administrator Dixon, can you call the roll?
Counselor Hart?
Aye.
Counselor Jerry Hamel?
Aye.
Counselor Will Hamel?
Aye.
Counselor Glennon?
Aye.
Counselor Jarvis?
Aye.
Counselor Caprioli?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is Resolution 2006-01, approval of the municipal budget. I will read this. I'm not gonna guarantee that I will not get tongue-tied with all the numbers, but I'm gonna try. By the Newmarket Town Council, Resolution 2006-01, a resolution relating to the approval of the municipal budget. Whereas the Town Council has completed the thorough review of the proposed budget, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Newmarket to recommend to the Budget Committee the following appropriations. Administration, $1,103,460. Employee benefits, $1,015,985. Capital improvements, $976,621. Recreation, $431,580. Debt service, $295,550. Police, 1,000, yeah. We cut your budget, Kim. $1,042,374. Emergency services, $168,943. Public Works, $1,581,447. Library, $249,749. Grants, $60,095. Social service grants, $48,360. For a subtotal of $6,974,163. Water Department, now this is an enterprise fund, Al?
Yes.
So that's why it's separated out. The Water Department enterprise is $900,470. Wastewater Department, $996,358, for a total of $8,870,991. Given at the Town Council Chambers, Newmarket, New Hampshire, this first day of February in the year of our Lord 2006. Questions, Councilor Glennon?
Are we making a motion to, and then going into discussion, or how does this work on this one?
You can do it either way.
Okay.
You got-
I got a question regarding the police department. That, I've got the book here that we were going through. Police department. Well, I had it all figured out.
Number 16.
Yep, number 16. Okay, actually, that's not the one I highlighted the wrong one. It looks like the one that I highlighted before that, or after that, was the emergency services. Emergency service.
17 is emergency management.
Is it 17? Yes, here it is. That appears to, how does that figure, why does that figure different from what I'm seeing on my sheet?
Emergency services is
Includes fire rescue and emergency management.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. And the only other question I have is, the council back on our workshop on Saturday, January 7th, and requested again on a Wednesday evening, and requested again on January 27th. And the town administrator, or actually January 11th workshop, and the town administrator has stated that they're waiting for some bids to come in for the employees' benefits, which part of that, my understanding, is the health care. We had requested that information, so I find it difficult on my part to go ahead and approve something that we requested about a month ago, and we still don't have that document, even though we gotta do the benefits. I understand that whole process, because they certainly want to give them health care, but the purpose of us asking was to see if there's something else out there comparable to us being self-funded versus going through the NHMA or going through another source. And we yet to get that information. So I'm a little complex to going to vote on something that we don't have all the facts on.
You know, we can request the bids, and the bids were requested when, the day after, or the following Monday, so if they're not in, they're not in. It's not like you can just take a measuring tape and they've gotta compare benefits to benefits, they've gotta compare everything that the town offers currently to give us a real price. you know, they gotta compare apples to apples.
I understand that. I myself, having worked for Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, who had at the time, one time, the NHMA contract, of which I was involved in, not in the negotiating portion of it, but on the side of the benefits for the employees that would call in on the toll-free line. Also know that when a company is giving that request, they're gonna move quickly on it. And I believe, I could be wrong, Al, I thought Melanie said she did get one from Anthem, but she was waiting for other companies.
Well, I was at the NHMA last Friday, I believe, for a meeting, and the proposal was supposed to come in. I haven't seen it. Mel has been handling the procurement of that, but Tom Dunn did indicate that they were compiling a proposal. It might be in by midweek this week. I haven't seen it. If it came in, it must have just come in today, because Mel met with me this afternoon. She didn't mention it. And Brian also referred his broker, and we have been providing him information to provide a quote also. But it takes them time, and it takes us time. If we were going to do this, we should have started back in September, really.
I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Brian? All set. Is there any other questions?
The only comment I would provide you, Madam Chairman, is that the only difference between this figure here and the deliberations of the council, there's a further $1,200 reduction in the cemetery amount because the cemetery board increased the contract service.
Okay, but this number includes it.
That's right.
Okay.
It's reflective of that. And I provided you with a printout of the proposed tax rate summary and the summary of the budget at this point. We'll be providing you the complete detail revisions very shortly.
There's actually one more line.
Counselor Glennon?
And the other one I've noticed too, there's a minus $2,150 off of the library. It looks like you had requested, they had requested $251,899, which matches your recommendation, and I'm showing $249,749. Is there?
$2,000 came out of building, is it building maintenance or promotions?
Building maintenance.
Building maintenance. $2,000 reduction was made.
Yeah,
there.
$2,150.
So it went over to the building maintenance?
No, it was just reduced.
Okay, why?
We cut it, right?
Cut it
Cut it?
because they had only spent, I think I was the one who suggested it. They
Yeah.
only spent $5,800 in 2004-5 audited, and budgeted twice that much.
Okay. I remember
So
that
instead of
now.
giving them even more than what they spent,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
cut it back to
Thanks for
closer.
that clarification, because I do remember that conversation now. I racked my brain last night trying to figure out why there was a difference there. Thank you.
There's fireworks.
Yeah, there is
Oh, you saw
firework.
fireworks?
Yeah, I thought I saw a flash.
Yeah, there
I
is
thought somebody was
firework.
tiger.
I thought, yeah, I was trying to figure out, is that a
Any other questions?
Let's hope they don't come through
Counselor
the
Hart?
windows.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2006-01. That's fireworks. A little early.
That is? Put a stop to it.
You have to make some money, find them.
So I made a motion.
Yeah, is there a second? Sorry,
It's okay.
I watched a bad movie before I got here tonight, so I'm a little gun shy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Wilfred Hamel. Any further discussion? Administrator Dixon, can you call the roll?
Counselor Hart.
Aye.
Counselor Jerry Hamel.
Aye.
Counselor Will Hamel.
Aye.
Counselor Glennon.
Aye.
Counselor Jarvis.
Aye.
Counselor Caprioli.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item, resolution 2006-02, withdrawal from the drinking water capital reserve. I will read this. By the Newmarket Town Council, Resolution 2006-02, a resolution relating to the withdrawal from the Drinking Water Capital Reserve. Whereas the Silverman Schneer easement has been purchased, and whereas the signing of the Silverman Schneer easement was January 23rd, 2006, and whereas part of the funding for the Silverman Schneer easement was to come from the Drinking Water Aquifer Protection Capital Reserve, and whereas the Drinking Water Aquifer Protection Capital Reserve has a balance of $206,924.64. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Newmarket does hereby release $175,000 from the Drinking Water Aquifer Protection Capital Reserve to partially fund the Silverman Schneer easement. Given at the Town Council Chambers, Newmarket, New Hampshire, this first day of February in the year of our Lord 2006. Is there a motion, Counselor Hart?
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2006-02.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Jarvis. Any discussion?
Yep.
Counselor Hart?
Yes. I was just thinking that because we are exploring water sources, and because we now know that there's going to be other money, or no, not other money, but there's going to be leftover money in the open space bond, that maybe we want to word this in a way that we can use whatever leftover money in the open space bond towards 175 and the balance from this, therefore leaving more money in the drinking water fund to help us buy a property that we're potentially exploring for water. Because the purpose of this is for that. And at the time we said we were going to spend the money out of here, we didn't know that we were going to take that route, because we were looking at Falls Brook and we were looking at the treatment plant. And I just came to me tonight, so I'm just thinking, well, because once we do this, we can't switch them. We can't take the bond money and put it in the reserve, but we can.
Can we add a line to this?
I think you can take the bond money and transfer. You can't.
Well, we
you
could
can't take the reserve.
We could use the bond money for the properties we're looking at, but it's just much more explicit and more consistent the other way. This is still consistent because it's protecting the Piscasset River.
We just don't know the exact dollar amount
And
of.
It would have to be written in a way that's a little unusual. Yeah, like up to use the available balance of the open space bond towards the cost of $175,000 for the Chanel Sewer Management, with the remaining amount, not the addition of the two, not to exceed $175,000 coming from the Drinking Water Reserve Fund.
Yeah, we'd have to say the uncommitted
Right
balance.
now, we do not have a balance to
Right.
transfer, and it'll probably be somewhat like 90, maybe 120 days before we can do that. So,
I don't know. I mean, if it doesn't really make a difference, then let's not do it, but I'm just thinking out loud.
I see no reason why you can't transfer at a later date the bond money back into the, once you
Just
get
say
the
we'd rather
transaction.
use it.
Yeah. You certainly can't transfer the reserve monies, okay?
Yeah.
But the bond money you can. So I think it would be a cleaner transaction to do that at a later date, once we got our money in, we're squared away, and we know what we have. Transfer.
Once we sell the Russo house. Okay.
Do we have an idea what we're anticipating?
Well,
So leftover,
Discuss this later tonight.
$75,000 to $100,000, I think is what we came to the conclusion of.
Yeah, finally.
Okay, did we get a second? Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Administrator Dixon, can you call the roll?
Counselor Hart.
Aye.
Counselor Jerry Hamill.
Aye.
Counselor Will Hamill.
Aye.
Counselor Glennon.
Aye.
Counselor Jarvis.
Aye.
Counselor Caprioli.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Madam Chair, I need to get some water.
Sure.
Very thirsty, thank you.
Town Administrators Report. Administrator Dixon.
In the interest of time, if there's any questions on what I provided the council, I'll be glad to respond to. Other than that, I would like to say that the financial report for December is done. It's in your boxes. I have, just delivered to me this afternoon, I made a quick review. At the 6-month point, there's nothing alarming as far as the expenditures and the departments. If we keep on this trend, we certainly are going to be in line. We can certainly hope and keep our fingers crossed, too, that next several months, is nice as far as Mother Nature is concerned. It doesn't give us a bunch of ice and storms on weekends where we have overtime and a lot of salt and sand that goes out. Also, looking at the income side, I will be more prepared to address at our workshop any questions you might have on that, and it would be probably a better discussion at a workshop, but we should review and go through it in depth.
The
But this was just
expenditure,
delivered
I'm
today.
sorry, the
Go ahead.
expenditure report seems like it's in a different format.
Yeah,
Or different-
programming changes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically the same, it's just
Yeah,
printed differently.
yeah.
And tonight, as far as non-publics, I need to update you on property tax, or not property tax, property acquisitions and sales negotiations.
Is there any questions for the town administrator? Counselor Brian Hart?
Oh, I forgot it's working.
Is it possible that we could discuss in non-public? Well, I don't know. Did you get the phone call from the gentleman who owns the building behind us?
No.
Oh,
I've been apprised though, but, and we'll
I
talk
asked him to
about
call
that.
you. Yeah, so hopefully
I
we can
got
talk
the
about
call
that.
too. I asked him to call you.
I can update you on that.
Yeah,
It sounds
and it
like
may be
it's-
why I didn't get the call.
It sounds like Al's working with him. At least
All right,
that's
yeah,
what he told me.
I think it would be. I just want to.
Yeah.
We can. I'll talk about it now, or talk about non-public, whatever's
Well,
appropriate.
I think non-public's probably.
No, it shouldn't have to be.
Well, I guess there's no reason why we can't talk about it right now if you want
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Basically,
Fine. I'd rather do it in public. So.
we're, the condition of the property immediately behind us here on Beach Street, Beach Street Extension, has been a matter of concern for the town planner and the code enforcement officer. And there are obvious structural weaknesses and things of this nature. And there's been a lot of correspondence, a lot of dialogue on it, and not much happening. And so the code enforcement officer talked with me. What he did is he drafted a letter, and I approved of it. What he did is he called the property owner in. We sat down, he sat down and talked with him. The letter was never mailed out officially. The following day, the property owner came back in. The property owner has been talking with me. He has a prospective buyer. I've asked the prospective buyer to provide a commitment and a letter of understanding of the structural deficiencies and improvements that need to be made to the property, his commitment to proceed to do those at the time of a sale. And meeting again Friday morning with the code enforcement officer and the prospective buyer to tighten up the letter that he provided us, because it's kind of vague. But yes, I am trying to work with the property owner and the new buyer,
That's
and
this
we would
week?
anyway.
You're gonna
Next
meet?
week, yeah, Friday. I've already met with them once, told them that the scenario they provided me, if that was the case, we would hold off on this, any action until the transaction was completed. But we needed an understanding from the buyer, and that's being worked out.
I had a question on that.
And I think that's keeping in harmony with what we try to do, not to get harsh. but-
Counselor Jarvis?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Counselor Jarvis?
Mine's unrelated to this.
Oh, I was just gonna ask Al if you can keep the council apprised of this and any of the written correspondence. I got word that a letter went out,
The letter did not go
no,
out.
a letter supposedly he has that condemns the building.
The letter, that letter did not go out. It was
Okay.
shared with him, the
Okay.
contents, and provided, but it wasn't sent out officially.
But he has a
Dan,
copy of the
code
letter.
enforcement officer sat down with him and said, this is where we're at. Okay,
Does
so
he have something like 30 days, he and the potential buyer?
the letter didn't go out.
It
The
doesn't
letter was
count.
just
No,
shared
no,
with him.
in the prospective buyer's comments on what he's planning on doing, and then you want to firm that up on Friday, is there a timeline for this to all to take place?
He
Is that-
indicated, the buyer indicated to me initially that he felt that he could conclude the transaction by the end of February. And I
Okay.
told him, I said, if, I'll work with you on that. I said, if it's March 15th, we can work with that. But I said, we need to tighten some things up.
Okay.
There needs to be an understanding.
I think I would be interested because, like Counselor Hart said, he got a call, I got a call. I don't even know what the violations are. If we could be apprised to what those violations are, so when somebody calls, or that individual calls again, I as a
look out the
council.
window.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you look
Look
out the
out the
window, you get
window.
an idea.
No. I want it so I can see something in writing that tells me, okay, this is what it is. So when somebody calls me and says, this is what I've been told, I have to, simply say, what you need to do is call the chair. The chair will work at the administrator. I happened to run into this individual the other day when I was delivering mail on New Road, and he stopped me, and I said, okay. And I asked him at that point, what have you done? And that's when he stopped me again yesterday or the day before, Monday, on Jerry Avenue. He says, I'm working with Al, I think we can, work out a solution. And I said, that's good, that's good. That's where it should be. So I'm glad to see.
Well, we always try to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying you don't, Al, but I guess as a council, I'd like to have something in writing so I can see where the problems are.
It's pretty hard at times in the various administrative affairs to give you all forewarning. What I do very definitely is try to work very closely with the chair and let her know. So hopefully, if you get these issues, you refer to the chair. That's the way I've worked with Brian. Tried to keep you abreast of everything that was going on, and and that way there's a controlled means of
Right.
communication.
No, I fully support that.
Yeah.
But if you gave him something that he's in violation of, it's just a copy of what you gave him so we can see it.
Yeah.
And it is a matter of public record, is that
Yeah,
correct?
if we would have sent it out officially,
Yeah, I don't mean
I would have
that letter.
provided it to you. But what the code officer did was sit down with him and said, look, this is the nature of the letter we're contemplating sending out.
Okay.
Want to sit down and share it with you, get reactions and everything. We got reactions, and we're working with the
Good.
individual.
Okay.
Had that letter gone out officially, you certainly would have got a copy. But it was used to bring the property
Players
owner
to the
in.
table.
That's right.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Jarvis.
Item number 1, C, the TIF committee agreed to move forward and develop rules of operation. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that?
Well, not so much what I meant, but basically, they want to develop more or less a mission statement and rules of procedure and how they, yeah.
For the actual TIF committee?
Yes, the TIF
Okay.
committee. Just internal rules.
And then 9, I guess, could you elaborate on that? I'm not really sure.
Okay, number 9.
Is that the signage issue?
Code enforcement is pursuing court action on zoning issues involving Great Northern Properties, approvals for operations in the Rivermore Pond.
Yeah.
That's the signage issue?
Well, yes, yeah, the office and everything, and not having a lot of cooperation there, so I authorized him to, I concurred with his action to proceed, because
go above
that's an
the
issue
zoning
for the
board.
planning board, too. I've talked to the
Right,
plan.
right.
Yeah.
As of today, if I could elaborate on that, Al, you probably
See,
got
at that time, I wasn't aware of anything on the Beach Street Extension property,
Right.
okay, at the time of writing this. Okay.
On number 9,
Dana, is
this is related-
Jerry, is yours related to what's being discussed?
It is,
Can you use your light, please? Go ahead, Dana. Dana, go ahead.
Oh, okay. As of today, that's been postponed for an indefinite period of time.
Which one?
Great Northern Properties.
Oh, I don't know about
I
that.
received a letter from Sue. The lawyers have asked for a postponement. First, they said indefinitely, but then they gave a date sometime in March. So I don't know where it is right now.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Counselor Jerry Hamel?
yeah, I had a question for Al, and I don't imagine he'd have the answers right now, but I was hoping he could get them for me. But
Okay.
I had heard that most of the school bus drivers in town that park the buses at their homes have been told they can't do that anymore, and I wanted to know why and maybe get a little more information on
Well,
that.
I can give you a little bit of insight right now. There is a zoning issue when you have a vehicle greater than, I think it's 2 tons, 1.5 tons.
1.5.
In a residential area, okay? And the same time we were having the discussions on a wrecker parked up on 152, which was exceeded that limit on the property. Directly across the street, there was a school bus that was being parked. So if you're dealing with one, you had to deal with the other. And the school bus drivers have complied. I know that might be a hardship, but then again, if it is, they can do like we've suggested with the towing company, take it to the ZBA and see if they can get a variance to do that. But it's clear in your zoning ordinances right now that that's prohibited. You know, you can have a half-ton vehicle, three-quarter-ton vehicle, but not anything exceeding a ton and a half. And I had those answers because we've been discussing them at staff meetings.
Any other questions? Al, this might be, it's not in your report, but I'm just gonna ask a question. When are we going to, according to the charter, do the meetings with the department heads and develop the plans and?
Okay, the employees or the division heads have, and some of them have brought me in some mission statements and things like that, of that nature they've been working on. But also, I've been waiting for council to provide me, in accordance with the charter, some goals and objectives they'd like to see incorporated in those plans.
Okay, well, I just wanna, I think, because it's the first time it's ever done, we have no history, at least for me, I'm gonna need a little education. It's not something I can do on my own. So whether we do it in a workshop, whatever, I'm not comfortable. I have no idea how a police department runs, how a town clerk's office runs, how administration runs. I would not feel comfortable, for me, making suggestions as to goals and achievements, so.
Well, you know, like for example, in the police department, there might be some of you that want increased visibility on Main Street, okay? Officer walking, patrolling during the course of the day.
So,
That's a
okay,
goal
so
and
it's
objective.
not really,
No, it's not getting into the heart
it's
of
not
that.
relative to budget and,
No. It's what you'd like to see, you know, maybe it's the Public Works Department. You want them to sweep the Main Street more than once a week or something like that, goals and objectives. And maybe also, too, you want the Public Works Department to consider in the capital improvements budget this year a street that's not been, you know, it's not on the radar screen at this point in time for improvements.
so the three departments would be police, public works, and administration?
Yes, and for this meeting, really, you only had the three department heads, but certainly for this meeting, all the division heads will be here. And, you know, I have provided them with a memo. I think I copied the council on this.
Yep, I remember
To have
that.
them start working on it. But there's also that part about the town council developing some, you know, providing some input to the department and division heads.
Okay, I wanna make sure that's on the workshop agenda for February 15th. So, in order for what we're doing to be in the packets, so we all have a copy of each other, so we can discuss it, we would need to have that into Kathy by Thursday the 9th.
I think you're gonna need a special meeting to just
Special meeting?
deal with the department of that kind of dialogue, I would say.
I'm thinking more March.
Okay. Sure, Jen, I'm sorry, I wasn't, I
We
guess,
were talking about that today also, for when this is gonna happen. I said, well,
I guess my perception was that we would meet, that the initial meeting would be with the department heads, and they would give us kind of their goals of what they're gonna work for the next 3 months, or however we broke it out in the timeline. Let us know what they were working towards, update us on issues that were happening at the current time, and then the next meeting that we met with them, we would be able to offer some suggestions and those types of things. I think it would be more helpful to meet with department heads initially, hear what they're doing, before we come up with a list of things that we say we want them to do. They might come in here and say, we're already doing them. So I think it would be advantageous for us to start it off just first meeting with department heads.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
I concur with that.
Yeah,
So we'll have a March special meeting with department and division heads. As I said, I've already provided a memo to the department and division heads to work on mission statements and goals and objectives.
so should we pick a date now? March 8th? It's a Wednesday.
Works for me.
Yeah, that is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Actually, March, we have 5 Wednesdays.
Yep. So let's take the last 2 off, get all 3 done.
Yeah.
I like that. That's the right attitude.
Yeah, so March 8th?
Yep.
Not doing it the 5th, Wednesday.
Okay, anything else regarding the town administrator's report?
Just a quick.
Dana?
Al, how are we doing with the Quonset hut parking lot? How's that progressing?
Going along fine at this point. I think, if you've been up around it, it's going better than I expected. And Rick Molaski, the Public Works Director, has been doing a good job keeping me appraised of what's been going on there. And in fact, he's been doing a very good job trying to market some of the material as it goes right now. And he's has marketed some of the material. I don't know exactly how much, but at $10 a yard. And picked up right there and trucked off. So we are not only stockpiling material that is good, that's coming out of there for our future use and sale, but we're also selling some of the stuff right now. And obviously the weather has not been, it hasn't been super out there, but it's been such that we've been able to utilize a lot of our trucks for trucking now to save some money. So I think it's going well.
The only other thing is that, and it's not a situation that you have to deal with, but however, when we were talking with Leo Manso, and I understand his medical condition, but however, he does have a partner, I had specifically requested that his organization speak directly to the board of directors of the Polish Club to let them know what's going on, what could be happening, the slope and all of that. That never took place. And again, I think it had to do with Leo Manso, but maybe, because I've spoken with a couple of directors and they said, no one's ever called us. And I kind of worked in, I think I know what's happening. That's not true?
It's not true.
That's not, well, how long ago did they talk?
I know that Nate Russell spoke to, I don't know how many people, he didn't go to a board meeting,
But
but he
that's-
spoke to someone with authority from the Polish.
Well, the Polish Club Board of Directors work like the council. Not one person has any more responsibility than the other. They all work together, so I had suggested or requested that someone go to the Board of Directors and talk to them directly, and that didn't happen. So talking to one person is like talking to one person on the council. Nobody has any more authority than the others.
Because of the blasting permits and everything, there was contact with all the people in that area. I would assume that's correct. Yeah.
You have to.
And, so I would think at this point in time, they have a pretty good understanding, but I guess I
yeah.
could follow up with the board and Rick or I could attend the board meeting to explain, but it's very clearly, and it's been in the paper a lot, and if they've listened to the broadcasted.
Right, that's very true, Al. However, what I'm saying is that you're going on somebody's not going on it, but working very closely with somebody's property. And what I was trying to do at that point was build a goodwill with the Polish Club as a neighbor, right? And you know what I'm saying here?
I understand.
Okay, so that was where I was going with that whole thing. However, you're correct. If you want to call the steward, Al Kuster, and see if there's a reason to meet with the board, I would probably do that. Because you're absolutely right. They can look up the window and they can see it now.
Rick, would you follow up on that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding that. I was up there running today. Is there any way or is it, can we not do it yet? Can we sweep up the dirt? That's kinda,
The sweep is actually being worked on right now. It's that time of year where he tears it down and goes through everything.
okay,
Yeah, we're working on addressing that.
okay, alright. Is this regarding this?
Regarding comments were just made in the, which I think weren't correct, in the administrator's report,
Okay,
regards to zoning, basically. Okay?
Go ahead.
yep.
Actually, I guess, it's
Can you go up to the mic, Leo? Just, I know.
You can do it, Leo.
We're gonna get you a traveling one, so you just clip it on your shirt.
Actually, two zoning items that were discussed. Dana brought it up. It was not continued. There was a request by one of the two parties in the Great Northern
Properties.
litigation that is requesting of the zoning board to continue because one of the members, that would be discussed at the next zoning board meeting as to whether they want to continue it or not. So it hasn't been continued yet, okay?
Right, but they were postponing it from
They
the,
are requesting it to be postponed. We will
right, from the
discuss it.
February meeting.
We will discuss it at the February meeting and see if we want to do
You're
it.
correct.
And the other one, I guess, is this truck bus parking. Did we ever have, and we've discussed it several times as to the parking, as to whether our zoning ordinances really do prohibit anything over a ton and a half, and we haven't been able to find it. There's been talk about, did we ever get a case where we did not?
Not that I
I'm
know.
talking to Jerry, because
For
he's
the
on,
ZBA, you mean?
yeah, the ZBA.
No, I don't think anybody
It never
ever-
got that far. We have had two complaints.
Some
that-
of the complaints were written out where people were parking vehicles in their yard, were
Right.
written out as a non-conforming in-home business.
Yeah, and
Which
that was,
wasn't the case, but those people didn't appeal.
right,
didn't,
okay, so I
want
couldn't
to
remember.
appeal.
I know we've talked about it a couple times as to, but I guess they never did go as far as appealing the zoning administrator's decision. Okay, I know we've talked about it.
I didn't know, can I speak?
Yeah.
I didn't know about the,
Why the hell not?
if there is a, this so-called ton and a half rule.
Yeah. Well, I guess basically if people are not, they have to appeal it to the zoning board of adjustment. The zoning board of adjustment will decide whether the zoning administrator does have the authority in our zoning regulations, I guess. And
Absolutely, that's the procedure, you know, if the.
yeah, and I thought, there's been two issues that have informally come to us, but I thought we had heard one of them, but I guess it never quite got to the point where we heard it. Okay.
I will discuss it with the staff tomorrow morning at the staff meeting if they've led me, which caused me to mislead you. But certainly those uses were felt and interpreted, I guess, by the code enforcement officer to be
That's his job.
a home occupation,
Okay.
and therefore would need a variance because it's over a ton and a half vehicle. And all of those parties were advised that they could go to the ZBA and, you know, and appeal the order, so to speak.
Counselor Wilfred Hamel.
Yeah, back to the Spring Street parking lot. Any results on the testing?
Yes. We have some soils that are stockpiled there. The only results in the tests, and this was a concern of John Pasquale of Stonehill Environmental when we started, he said, there's no real reason to look because there's no indication that there's a problem. He said, obviously, when you go look and you look hard enough, you probably will find something. Well, we did. We found that there's ash content. Now, ash content will not leach into the water supplies or anything like that, but there is a maximum not to exceed level for ash in soils that the state has. We exceeded that by like 4.004 parts per billion, I think it was, very minutely. That becomes a hazardous waste. If you're going to move it off-site, it has to go to a secure location. Well, we are choosing not to go off location. That will be reused on site, and you can do that. Then that got into the discussion. I think I did report to the council about the ash content at the last meeting, as I remember. Brian does too, because we exceeded the
This was the last
testing
workshop.
Yeah, you were absent probably
right.
with Cole, Will. Excuse me. We exceeded the permit, the $9,000 or $8,000 that was authorized, because they really couldn't give us a figure on the further analysis. But once we got to the point where it cost us around $3,800, I guess, for the first testing. Is that correct in that figure? But once we get to that point and there's a problem, you can't stop. All right, so they had to go out and do 14 core samples, and then when they did that, you have to hurry them up, so that cost a little more. So they didn't have a figure they could give us. So we exceeded the $8,000 limit by $1,250, and they had to ask for that authority, and also the authority to expend $1,500 to get a written report, which I think we all approved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Nothing, you know what I mean, there was nothing lethal up there.
Nothing toxic.
If you were to test many properties in the downtown and New Village area and all of that, you would probably run into a high ash content.
So, anything in the so-called topsoil is going to stay there.
It's going to stay on site. Now, there's also an old adage, solution to pollution is dilution. Okay, so we could have mixed that,
Oh, sure.
but we aren't.
Okay, one more thing on that.
In some cases, solution to pollution is dilution.
Yeah. At the time, I was listening to the people that were going to do the work, and it slipped by me. I have no doubt that those that are doing the work know what they're doing. You know, they've done it before. But why wasn't there the bidding process taking place? Whether it was better off to use these people or not, why wasn't that done?
Well, we also discussed that at length at a council meeting, or maybe two. Basically, there are times, first of all, in the state of New Hampshire, there's no requirement that you go to a bidding process by law, and there's case law on that. But okay, next, it's always nice if you can and you do.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some operations that, such as the rock crushing, there are not that many out there, okay? And some of them have to relocate their equipment from distances and things like that. We just took the posture of trying to negotiate. Leo had, has used us reasonable in other operations. Local contractors donated their time and equipment when we were building the Public Works building.
But even so.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I'm getting some pretty good remarks as what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
Don't we do this anymore? Excuse me for. I think we would build a better, have a better appearance if we stuck to this.
That certainly would have delayed the process. We probably,
I know.
And as we discussed that night, we certainly would have to expend some money up front on some engineering services to work up a scope of contract, and we would have got into a lot more money,
That.
And that was the consensus of the group. The way we did it is just like, only we had a better opportunity. This was kind of like a design build, only an abbreviated one, like we did with the Public Works building. But we had a number of contractors we could talk to there. There aren't a lot of rock crushers out there, operations per se, particularly mobile. Jerry, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, they're out there. A lot of them don't work winter.
Yeah.
But I think there's one in Exeter, but nowhere near the size of what Ledgebound is.
So I really feel that, you know, in the end, and I think we discussed that and hashed that over, that we got good value for what we're doing
I
here.
do too, but I hope those people are satisfied that are listening with the answer that you just gave.
I hope so too, because really, I think, again, I felt very comfortable based on the figures that came through, or else I wouldn't have recommended it to you. I would have recommended we spend the extra money and go through that entire process.
Okay.
But we probably saved, I feel we saved conservatively on the contract itself, but we probably saved upwards. You don't do much with an engineering firm and designing the scope of work and everything for $10,000 these days. So, just on the design scope of work, I feel at minimum you save $10,000 and maybe more. And then I think on the contract itself, I was satisfied that it was very competitive.
Thank you.
Councilor Glenn, is this related to?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's
go
actually.
ahead.
I saw it in here one time, Midway Excavation. Do they have a crusher?
Midway's out of
I don't
business.
believe there is a Midway excavation anymore.
Out of business.
Out of business.
Okay. Well, I happened to see it in here, and I didn't know what excavation. I thought maybe they may have had one. Also, what about what used to be Ipola?
They're gone too.
Didn't they?
Theirs was stationary.
It was stationary. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, town council to consider old business. Follett's Brook. We had a meeting on a couple Mondays ago. You guys got a memo. Follett's Brook voted in favor of testing the wells. Not at an additional cost. There's money that you guys, we already approved to do that. So I guess I'm just letting you know that, I guess we want your support. Is that right, Leo? You just, we're informing them that we're going ahead with the testing.
Yeah, that's what the state had requested.
Right.
Last of the meeting because the testing had only been 1 or 2 times, and they wanted to see how it would react over a continuing basis, and so I guess that and.
Are we testing the wells though too?
Pardon?
Are we testing the wells too?
Well, there was two requests. One was to continue the testing of the sand filter versus the Piscasset, up and along the Piscasset, because we did 3 times before. And just to see the differences and changes in water quality. The second recommendation was to do testing on the drilled wells. We've never done it. It was part of the contract with Gillies Brothers to do that water testing, and at the time they wanted $300, George, or something
Each well
well.
for the testing?
Testing.
What,
Something like
2,100, I think.
Well, with that much? Well, whatever, at the time, we decided not to do it until we saw what the results of all the wells were, and I guess right now it's a question, we feel the next step is to test it to see if they are treatable and
Right.
how much it might cost to treat them on site.
Right, and there's no additional monies for this. We already have monies to do
Well, it's
this.
coming out of the College Brook.
Right.
well,
And George, in your memo, can you do a follow-up letter to DES? Tell them we have the, authorization to go ahead to do more testing, and ask them if they're gonna accept our results?
This memo that
Yeah.
you just got, I'm going to put that in letter form to DES and ask for their approval and if they require any additional testing.
Okay.
And this would take 1 8-hour day per week to do the testing of 10 hours. And we can do everything on this memo in-house. If they want any additional testing, we'll have to pay for it because.
Okay, but before, this is what I wanna know. Before I wanna know what their answer is before we start doing
I
this.
called Bob Mann, he said, send me a scope of
Okay.
what we're going to be doing.
Okay,
And if they approve it, we'll move forward.
all right. Leo, go ahead.
I thought that Dennis had talked to Rainey recently on what would be, DES would require for putting these wells into service, and Rainey was supposed to be sending something to the town as to what DES felt would be the testing required before they would do this, and so nothing has come in yet. This was
Seen anything?
I think we need a follow-up.
okay, all right, so I guess it's two things, the same thing going on in different ways. But I guess if you're getting it.
I'm following up on the testing of the brook.
Oh,
I didn't do anything on the wells.
That's, you're just talking about the book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Counselor Glennon?
George, over what period of time will this testing be done? You said 8 hours, or one, you know,
Well, it could go for 1 year,
oh,
because if you read the letter they sent us,
That's what they want.
it was through the seasons.
how much
is
more
what
money
they
we gonna
specified.
this project?
Well, this money's already
Been allocated, yeah.
been allocated to do the testing.
It
Or
just-
some, our,
That's the letter we got months ago.
I don't know where we are. Contract.
we authorized 35,000, an additional 35,000, but we stopped.
That was for the wells, you know.
Did we originally start with 50,000?
Wait a minute.
And then we went
50,000.
35,000 on top, so we're at 85,000. Where are we now, George?
Li-
No, we never spent the 50.
Yeah.
Well, you've got commitments there. You got, I don't know where we are totally with the RC&D contract. But it was 15, yeah, but there's been some other expenses involved there, I think.
Maybe we need an update on that, Madam Chair.
If I could.
Yep, go
okay.
ahead.
I called Leo after our meeting with Rennie Pelletier and Bob Mann and the group here, and part of what I understood too that they wanted, if we're going to go forward with this, is a letter from us detailing our philosophy on the operations of the plant and, you know, how we intend to operate, some scenario. And Leo said there wasn't any need to do that because he was going to meet with the Falls Brook Committee, which he did. But I think also DES maybe before even responding to anything was expecting some sort of letter on our philosophy of operations and what we intend, you know, how we intend to operate. Could you recall that, Lorianne, at
Yeah.
the conclusion?
I guess I'm a little confused because I feel like there's a million people doing a lot of things.
There is.
So we haven't done that yet. Told them how we were gonna operate the plant.
No.
That was one of their requests, I remember that.
Comment on the testing, I thought at the meeting, it was commented that we wouldn't need year-round testing if we weren't planning to run year-round. And if we're only run in the fall, winter, spring months, that's all we would need the testing if we weren't planning to run during some months.
But are you talking about the meeting with DES?
Yes.
I didn't hear, I heard that they wanted year-round testing.
You did?
But, yeah, but that's, it seems like before we do this testing, we've got 3 other steps to do. To me, it's,
We're expecting a
first of
letter
all, we
from
need
us.
to know where we stand with funds. We've allocated approximately $80,000. 50 and 30.
50 and 35. The warrant article is 50.
Yeah.
The warrant article didn't appropriate any money. It authorized to spend money that we already were authorized to spend.
I
Oh,
understand.
so we did
big
15 and
difference.
35. I think you're right, Brian.
It's 50 and 35.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Confused.
Gets me going. 'Cause we-
So a
it was
total
in
of
the
50
reserve-
right now.
I think so.
Okay.
Because if we had,
You adding the wells, the 28,000 that we spent on the wells?
well, we didn't spend 50,000 on Falls Brook so far,
I don't know what we spent.
because we only authorized 15,000 for the contract with RCCD. So where'd the other 35 go? Into the
Well,
wells.
we had some expenses there.
I don't know what we
in
spent
building
on
the road.
Falls Brook out of the 50,000, but I know we spent 28,000 for the wells.
Right.
And we spent $1,200 for testing. So have they billed us for any of the work they've done yet?
The RC&D?
Yeah.
I
I
don't.
asked Mel a month or so ago, and she said she.
I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything.
So they
I
haven't
haven't seen
built this,
anything.
as far as I know.
I thought we had 15,000 committed to RCP.
Yeah.
But they haven't built this.
No, I don't know, then I thought there was another 2,000 for something else. I thought we spent 17 or 18,000 out of 50.
We spent some money on a dozer in there for a couple of
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
Well, you-
That's right, in the
there's-
forester.
there's Other expenses.
Let's get a report then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Couple thousand, so.
That's
I
what
thought
I'm
there was
suggesting. We haven't got a-
15
Why don't we do this, before we go forward with this, let's see where we are, how much we've spent thus far, or what's committed.
Yeah. And Leo, we'll probably have to talk with you if you drop in. You and I and Mel will sit down and probably Rick and George and just make sure we've everything, we know everything that's out there. Okay.
Okay. Counselor Wilfred Hamel. Okay, Counselor Jerry Hamel.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. I thought it was Rennie Pelletier, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yep.
Who was requesting the water testing.
Of the surface water.
And he was the one that's in charge of whether or not that permit would be issued. The others are in another department now, am I correct?
I.
All water quality.
Supposedly, I mean, recently, Courier, Paul Courier and Bob Mann no longer work for Rainey, they work for Stewart and Harry Stewart.
Well, Courier is on the federal Clean Water Act.
Right.
It's a federal.
No, in-stream flow. Well, in-stream flow, yeah.
And I didn't know about Bob Mann. I thought he was the director of water quality. And that fall under,
He's municipal
Rennie?
water, not Courier.
yeah. That, I thought that fell under Rennie, but I'm not, maybe it's changed.
But Rainey is the one who is holding up our wetlands
Yep.
application. The other guys have got nothing to do with our wetlands application. Rainey,
But it sounds like they do, because it sounds like they're the ones that are, and should they be?
he's
Should,
listening to them, but they do not have jurisdiction over the wetlands.
Unless Rainey lets them.
okay, so should we be dealing with Rainey and keeping this Bob Mann out of the picture for now?
Well, it's Paul Courier more so than it is Bob Mann, because it's the Clean Water Act that they're looking at versus.
It just seems like there's an awful lot of concern over
A little
the
brook.
town of Newmarket and the little brook over here,
Yeah.
that, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't at all.
Yeah.
And why they're doing it.
Politics involved, going on up in Concord and,
But we shouldn't succumb to that, I don't think.
well, I think
No?
No, but, there's certain information that they request that we gotta compile and give them, or.
But doesn't it seem a little strange that this much attention over that little brook? And to say that it isn't a proven water source is kind of,
Ideally,
true, I mean, 1890s, I guess? I mean, I guess it's
it's not an
proven,
existing water source.
but it just, I don't know, it just seems like.
I think there's a lesson to be learned here. Ideally, when you have a water source, don't discontinue it, the maintenance of it or whatever, or the reporting of it, when you essentially do discontinue it. Because what happened was the town just abandoned and stopped using it. And what they made it crystal clear was that there was just absolutely no way that they were going to consider that an existing source.
Now, what if you were to go and do this so-called new treatment plant and drop a line into the center of the lamprey? I mean, they'd welcome that?
Well, that'd have to be permitted. That's a new intake. That's all kinds of permits.
You'd think we'd be told right now, don't even consider it, don't even try it, with this much attention on this little brook,
Well, they got to allow us to pump out of the lamprey. There's no question. This is really, it's a tough issue. You got the Falls Brook there, and you abandoned it from the viewpoint that you didn't continue your yearly maintenance of it or anything like that. town had said, okay, we're gonna abandon that, and it wouldn't cost an arm and a leg to continue going in there year after year and doing that maintenance, then we probably wouldn't be in the dilemma we're in right now, correct?
What's that?
I say if the town, when they discontinued the use of Falls Brook, if they would have discontinued it, the use of it maybe as taking in water, but kept the maintenance up, we wouldn't be in the situation right now. And that would have only cost a few $1,000s a year to do that. But nobody made that decision, so that's hindsight, but I think a good lesson learned. Don't abandon what you have. Don't give up what you have.
But on the other hand, we dealt with a wetlands official who'd been in the business for an awful long time, and this was routine in his eyes, and everything was moving ahead, and then all of a sudden, somebody hears something, and
Well, you know,
bang, the doors start shutting, and it doesn't make sense.
The
You
one
know, just-
before, though, Jerry said this is not permittable, and then she got replaced by Governor Benson. And then that's when we applied.
yeah, if you
So,
recall.
the one before said no.
We got a,
I'm just
we got
saying.
a fellow that had a lot more years in the department,
I don't
and
think the
said,
woman that made the other decision would agree that she was very qualified, very experienced.
oh, I'm not saying no.
What happened in the end was and I was critical of that when we had the walk. George, when was that? In July, or when they came down finally and slammed the hammer on us? I was critical of that because we weren't doing this in a vacuum. And I told him that day, and I was very put out with the fact that money is a concern, but the money was small in comparison to the time we had wasted if they were going to put the kibosh to it. It should have been put right in the beginning, you know? And so I was very critical of that, and I think that was addressed a little bit in the discussions we had here, because I told Bob, I said, you were not as firm with the delivery of the message to the town council as you were to George and I and Rick. You know? And, he's committed that he's going to work on that. Be more firm. But, you know, I'm very, you know, somebody said, look, this is not a business as usual in the maintenance project. This is a new source because it's been abandoned, and that's what held up the issuance of that permit. I do happen to agree with the gentleman that made that decision. I think he had every right to interpret it as a maintenance. You know, there is that possibility, you know, to interpret it that way. But then there's also the other opinions out there that no, it's not. It's a new source. No maintenance was done on it, nothing. And that was very clear that this is not going to be considered an existing system. Simply go in there and update, because that was the crux of the issue that day.
Mhm.
It's a new source.
Counselor Hart?
So, have we gotten a letter from DES since that meeting? Weren't they supposed to
No,
send us
because
a-
I think we're waiting for a letter. They are waiting from a letter from us before they even respond.
They want an action plan, sort of.
Yep.
What we're gonna do to the plant, the testing that we had a meeting about the fall, because this water would have to go through the plant,
But how can we know what we're gonna do with the plant without knowing what the water is, without knowing if we can use the water?
Well, they want to know if we're going to operate the plant for 12 months of the year, 8 months of the year, 6 months of the year. They want to know what our expected withdrawals are during those periods, you know, essentially how we're going to operate. Our philosophy of operating that plant. We got to have a developed philosophy. I
So
think
is
that was
something
my
that
understanding.
George is gonna work on with you, or?
Well, I thought, you know, Leo, if you recall, about probably a week or so ago, I called and George was in my office, and I said, Leo, do you think we ought to get together and start working on that letter? And you said no. Okay, 3 weeks ago. Time flies when you're having fun. Basically, you indicated no, you'd rather wait until after you met with the Falls Brook Committee. So we haven't done anything on that.
Well,
But I thought it was
my thought
important
is
we
that
have
it's not
Leo
the
in there.
Falls Brook Committee responsibility to determine when or how we use the water treatment plant. I mean, the committee is working on getting that permitted as a source. We need the staff and you to develop the plan that says, here's how Falls Brook can be used in conjunction with the treatment plant when it gets operated. We're gonna need to use the wells during these months. Boom.
Well, Yeah,
That's what I
but
think needs to happen.
but
I mean,
I-
this is just, we're spinning, and I'm gonna start voting no on spending more money if we're spinning on this project.
well, I certainly feel that this has been pretty much a project by committee. with
Yeah, it
Falls
needs
Brook,
to stop
And it
being that.
needs to, I needed their input as to the basic, and the staff needed the input in order to do the letter on how, what the plan is for withdrawals from the Falls Brook. I think that the committee had to have that input, has to have that input.
So can you and Leo and George meet between now and the workshop, and we can put this on the agenda in the workshop
Yeah.
to discuss further?
Think we can, guys?
There's several steps before we go further into doing this, and is our plan even operatable at this point?
Well, it would require some work, but hopefully, anytime you stop exercising the
Right.
plant, when you start up, you got some work. But it's not gonna be anywhere near the work that I would assume that we went through.
That's more than a month to get.
Yeah. But it wouldn't be anywhere near the work that we went through in 2000, okay?
All right. Counselor Jarvis?
So when we meet to have this workshop, it's very helpful for me to have what we already asked for, which was how much money we've already allocated
Yep.
towards Falls Brook.
I got that
And if
down.
we could have that in two sections to how much money's been allocated to the wells and how much money's been allocated towards testing the surface water or looking at the surface water. And I guess what would also be helpful for me to have prior to the workshop is to understand what we're hoping to happen in separating it out between the wells and the water that would go into the treatment plant. Because I'm having a hard time understanding how we went from the last time we talked about Falls Brook to it seeming like it was a dead issue with DES to now wanting to spend another $5,000 on testing. So I've missed something in there.
I think what happened was, I reported to you that, in my opinion, DES was saying no.
To the surface water,
To the surface water going through the treatment plant,
to using the surface water at all.
to using the surface water at all.
And then Falls Brook had a meeting regarding, the Falls Brook Committee, regarding the wells and testing of the water.
Of the well water. Or the surface.
Of both. Because DES asked for that, they want all the information regardless of what we're choosing to do. They're not gonna settle for, I mean, my opinion hasn't changed of what happened in that meeting. But testing the water isn't necessarily bad information to have. And the voters approved $50,000, so, not approved, but, yeah, approved it for us to spend $50,000, so, I succumbed to that argument.
So this testing would be for testing the surface water and testing the water in the wells. And then we could look at the water quality in both and decide which might need to go through the water treatment plant, which might not need to go through the water treatment plant. But didn't we already say that there wasn't enough capacity in those wells anyways?
Well, the 2-gallon well, you might as well just forget. So the other two, you might end up with a sustainable capacity of half of what they say, let's say.
We have in the current well that's there, 60 gallons a minute?
60 to 80, you hear both ranges. But just to make it clear, and I signaled to George, the 5,000 is the brook testing. The well testing,
brook, thank
yeah,
you.
the well testing is going to be much more expensive and involved. It's going to be very expensive.
You have to pump the well
We can
for
get the figure for you.
multiple days in a row. Submit all information, you have to drill test wells to show if water levels in the area go down. They'll probably have to measure the water levels.
So
Falls
right now,
Brook.
you're just asking for the 5,000 to test the surface water, which before we would do that, we would want to make sure that DES was going to accept those. That's what you said, right, George? Since we're not certified to do it ourselves.
Well, we're
Okay.
certified, we have the ability, but will they accepted as
Not a
objective.
certified laboratory.
That's why.
Well, we're not a certified laboratory, but
That's the only
our
reason.
results are certifiable. But I think the thing is whether or not they'll take us as a non-biased, you know.
Right.
This
Okay,
conversation
that
is
helps a little bit.
certifiable.
But I think we need to have all that information in writing for the order. Yeah.
And any correspondence in the last few months from DES would be very helpful. Is that-
Yep, all set.
Okay, Counselor Jerry Hamel.
Yeah, I guess I just want to put in a perspective what this Fowler's Brook could mean. I guess right now, we've got 2 wells running. They meet the needs of the town right now. We've had favorable weather conditions for a while. If we lost one of those wells, I guess we wouldn't have enough water. We'd probably have to fire up the treatment plant, and that's going to take a month, and put water from the Lamprey or the Piscassic. We know what that was all about, and that probably would have to be posted in the newspapers. So we've got some people going to look at trying to find us some new water. Doesn't mean they will. They're also looking at recharging the wells. That doesn't give us more wells. That just recharges the same 2 wells. And that could be a controversial
Issue.
thing too. So I guess even if this took some time, Fowler's Brook, it probably would be still the quickest water to get online. That could give us a 3rd source.
And
So I really think we probably should still pursue this. We know what it's been like in the past. I mean, it's been, actually the town has run on that for quite a while. I think we should pursue it. You know, we're talking $50,000, and if we developed a well, I think it's going to be a little more than $50,000. So this isn't anything to just fluff off because we're getting caught in a political thing up in Concord. I think we should really pursue this because we've had it pretty good for a little while because of the weather, and if it wasn't that way, we'd be really talking water.
Administrator Dixon?
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe ease some of the concern. Yes, we have the 2 wells. If one of them were to go offline, that's the worst thing, a pump go or some component. But a couple of years ago, we had that situation, and we had it back online within 24 to 36 hours. So we can move quickly. You know, I wouldn't expect to have it down for a long period of time. We've also replaced those pumps at this point in time, and we're keeping a spare motor, aren't we?
No, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't do that?
No,
Okay, but
they have one available.
they have one available. Okay, so, again, if a well went down, it would probably go down because of one of the components. And we moved very quickly on that. I don't think the public even knew we had a hiccup at that time. But, the pump went and had to be replaced.
I really wasn't talking about a pump going down. I was talking about
The well totally?
something happening to a well, like a contaminated site or something, maybe,
Yeah.
which we've got a notice of a site, right, abutting the wells that is a contaminated site. Losing a well, let's say, for another reason,
I see, okay, yeah.
it could happen,
Okay, I just was looking at the mechanical aspect.
Yeah.
Counselor Glennon?
If we're done with this subject, I'm ready to move on to the next subject.
I don't think we are. Counselor Hart?
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to, developing wells at Fowler's Brook isn't going to be any cheaper than any other sites that we're looking at. And I think they're going to make us look at Fowler's Brook because the wells are so close to the brook that they're going to argue they're stream influenced, which means they run into in-stream flow rules, especially the one that's 15 feet from the brook. So they're going to require us to do the test flows and all that stuff. I think we're looking at least a year to 2 years on it, and $100,000 or $200,000, and to maybe get an answer that's no, because they've made it so clear at the start. They haven't said no to the treatment plant, which I don't want to spend the money on. That's what we're trying to avoid. They haven't said no to the groundwater exploration that we are looking in. They actually think those are both good ideas in the long run because they provide us with enough water, and not. Fowler's Brook is not a secondary backup source if the wells are contaminated. That's their opinion, because it's not enough water by themselves. But, you know, I'll discuss it more at the next meeting, but I really need to have a full sense, and maybe we need to have DES here and understand what the issues are, because I'm not getting a clear communication from the memos from the committee and the discussions we're having about where we're at, how much we spent, where we're going, what the probable outcome is. I'm hearing from Lorianne that it's not probable. So maybe we need to have DES here, maybe the council needs to start actively discussing this every week.
Counselor Wilfred Hamel?
Before we finish old business, I got a couple things. I don't know if we're all done in Fowler's Brook.
Yes, it's gonna be on the workshop agenda. Go ahead, Wilfred.
Did everyone get a notice from Becky on the dog ordinance? And that's okay? I went in and told her that I liked it, and I kind of approved it, but now I'm asking, how about the rest of the people?
Yeah,
It's
I
good.
think it looked great.
Yeah.
Very
Short
nice
and
that she's
sweet,
done it.
and, okay. The second thing is, we got a letter, well, Al Dixon got a letter from a person, I think, on Fox Hollow about a safety problem on the exit. Did that slip by, or are we gonna take care of that?
Safety committee is gonna, the Highway and Public Safety Committee is gonna have to meet, and I talked with Kathy about getting, together with, getting Jerry on the phone.
Because
I don't know
thi-
if she's contacted you yet.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
This was
talked-
January 6th
Yeah,
that this building got
Yeah.
the notice, so.
We talked about that at the January workshop.
the 18th meeting. yeah,
That letter.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it just, I think, what's the date on the stamp that it came through the office?
Come on.
Did you got the letter there?
112.
Okay. Yeah, so it,
Okay.
so, Kathy is gonna be contacting Jerry to get the committee together to discuss that. That's the only issue we have, I think, at this time.
Thank you.
Counselor Glennon?
Yeah, I only have one thing. I'm not sure if any of the other councils got calls on this, but I spoke with you, and you had asked me to bring it up this evening. Is it too late to do another warrant article? Are warrant articles done, the deadline?
Town council can submit a warrant article right up till the time you post it.
Okay. So I'm not sure if we want to do a warrant article on this, or whether the council can do it. It appears that the veterans, what do you call that?
Trust or
No, the veterans exempt.
Oh, exemption?
We did like $400. I've got a couple of calls.
375.
How much?
Wasn't it 375?
No, I was told it was 400.
somewhere in that area.
Yeah, and most communities in the area have gone to 500. They want to know, at least two people I got calls from would like to know, we can put it on the warrant article, have the people vote, see if we'll go to the 500. Or Lori and I talked about it, we're not sure whether it can be done through the council, because we did authorize it before, wasn't it the council?
Oh,
or
no.
It was a warrant article?
Warrant article.
Okay.
You don't have the ability to do it. See, it's a budgetary item.
It's a budgetary item, okay. So, I don't know how the rest of the council feels about this, but it was brought to my attention, and one of the individuals is actually away and called, and they're in Washington DC, and I said, what I can do is bring it up to the council.
You still have to finish up on the warrant articles, so that's something the council can consider.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Do we
I would
have a
ask the
special
council.
meeting for that?
No, I think we're gonna take it at a workshop session.
Okay.
Because you've pretty well gone through them. There's only a couple outstanding,
Right.
and we're working on the verbiages on the other, on the ones that you've pretty well given your consent to.
Counselor Jarvis?
What is the status of did we make any motion to figure out if we were gonna do a formal parking study or not?
Yes, I'm working on trying to get an RFP together to get that out.
Okay.
And I'll bring that back before the council, probably at the next meeting.
And then did somebody contact Mike Provo? Was he supposed to, is he coming in February to
Workshop,
talk
I saw him
about?
at the,
Be at the March meeting.
I saw
Yeah.
him recently.
February workshop,
February
it'll be the
workshop.
February workshop. And did that urban service boundary happen to come in by the end of this month? No? And one more, and then the parking, ban ordinance, we talked about changing that, the downtown parking.
Yes. That was supposed to come before this meeting for an introduction, and it didn't, so I'll have it for the workshop. You know, and all that is an amendment to the hours,
Right.
changing it from 12 to midnight, 12 to 1 o'clock and 1 a.m. And still leaving intact the ability for the public works to declare a snow ban and snow emergency. Yeah. Sorry about that, Jen.
That's okay.
It didn't get done as quick as I'd like to have seen it.
Counselor Hart?
I had the impression from that discussion that Rick was open to us having parking on the streets with the ability to, at his determination, to have a snow emergency, and then to announce it on the radio like Exeter does.
Exeter still has a street ban in the winter months
I
after
think
a
it's
certain
just the
hours.
downtown, but not the whole town.
Right, okay.
So is that, did anybody else get that impression at the last meeting? Because
I think I
in the
got
past
that
I pushed
impression
that.
that he said, so that if he needed the cars to be off before 1 a.m., he could call an emergency and have them removed before then.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because in the new village area, there's a lot of new driveways forming in people's yards, and it's kind of not
Because they can't park on the
attractive.
street.
It's a lot of mud being created, a lot of grass turning into dirt, and it's because, I don't know, there must be a lot of people with cars living at the house because 2 spaces isn't enough, so they park on their lawn, and if, you know, especially there where it's mostly one-way streets, it seems like you could have parking on one side during the winter.
Well, that's something we can take.
Close it off, you know, during a parking ban.
I didn't get or expansive idea from Rick, but tomorrow morning's staff meeting, I'll raise the issue, and that's something that can come before the Highway Public Safety Committee. They generally look at things like that.
Because I think we could post it on the website. You could have a phone, with our new fiber optic system, we could have a phone number that you call that has a recorded message that he can record from home to change it, just like UNH does. You call 0000 and bingo, parking ban, school's delayed, whatever.
Yeah, my understanding, though, he is very receptive to the 1 o'clock change and keeping the snow ban and the snow emergency in place.
Well, maybe if the committee would be willing to look at that and discuss options for making parking on the street a little bit more flexible, I think it would increase property values in a couple neighborhoods where there's a lot of cars being parked on lots. And making driveways and curb cuts bigger and really not attractive.
Yeah. I will be discussing that, as I generally do with the
Okay,
staff tomorrow
thank you.
morning. And we'll definitely probably include that then on the itinerary for the Highway Public Safety Committee.
Okay, new business correspondence. I have a question. I've gotten a couple of phone calls from Roseanne Quox regarding and maybe you can answer this question, the planning board needing a question answered about water for that development.
Basically, because the urban service boundary is out there, but it hasn't been accepted yet, it goes by the rules of that urban service boundary. And so so basically the planning board had asked the Quacks to consider coming online with water so that they wouldn't have individual wells. Well, according to the urban service boundary, they would need the town council to tell the planning board that we had enough money for the Quacks to come online.
Enough capacity.
Enough water, what did I say?
Money.
Money.
We probably don't have enough money.
Enough water to come online. So the way that that's why I keep asking about the urban service boundary, because basically in it states that the town council will tell the planning board whether or not there is enough money to hook somebody else up to the system.
Money,
Said money
water.
again. If they can pay us enough to hook up to the system. Water. Do you have any water? George was supposed to get in contact with you, or maybe Clay. Nobody has.
No one has, just Roseanne. My take on it would be this, we went from we created the urban service boundary line because our intention was to keep what water we believe to have left in the system for users in the mills. So I would not feel comfortable authorizing however many additional houses to hook up to the system, especially since we're changing the spirit of the urban service boundary line was because we wanted to be able to manage it. You know what I'm saying? Versus just hook up. That's my interpretation.
Plus, we're on a water ban now, level 4.
Counselor Wilfred Hamel.
Yeah, doesn't this have to do with whether we can, whether how much water we got and the way we balance things? Didn't we talk about, Jerry, one while, even right in town, allowing people, not that we did, but we did talk about allowing people to drill their own well?
It was, it was something that was discussed. Yeah.
So, I don't know what the balance is, or no one knows where the balance is about,
Well, to
how much
help you out
water.
with that, when they did the urban service boundary line, there was supposedly, on a daily basis, 35,000 gallons of additional water.
Well, I'm not sure that,
And that's what helped them draw the line around
yeah,
the mills.
yeah. And also, that also states somewhere in there, I read a while back about quality water.
Yeah.
How can you, we don't know if we're going to, I'm just wondering, eventually put notes in their water bill that, the quality of the water, the quality that the water may be.
If we were to go online on the Lamprey is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hit my button. I just thought of something. Is that the property that we're talking about is within the urban service boundary. It's not outside of the urban service boundary. It is within it. And that was the discussion of, because at first it was brought up, because if we wanted to extend, if services wanted to go outside the urban service boundary, then we'd need to know that there was enough water to go outside the urban service boundary. But what we are talking about is that somebody wants to hook up to the water within the urban service boundary.
That's the whole blue.
Right, which is the whole blue.
Okay.
And so the town needs to give direction to the planning board on whether or not there's enough water for somebody else to hook up. Because what's happening is people are coming to the planning board saying, I've got all these, I want this new construction, I want to do this, I want to do that. And we need to say, do we have the water capacity to hook all of these people up? And do we have the water capacity to do that? And can we, in good conscience, hook other people up to the water system when we're on a level 4 water ban?
Did we change that line?
Did
Change
the
what?
town council change the line?
The urban service boundary line?
No, we didn't change it.
No.
The red is the mills. That's the
blue is the overall boundary.
blue is where the existing water lines reach.
And the red is where the urban service boundary line is.
No,
No.
the whole blue is the urban service boundary. The red is and what does it say right there
It's
next
the
to
mills,
it?
I believe.
Yeah, but it's got a
It is,
name.
but it's the, what does it say in the legend?
Focus area or something?
Focus area or the,
USB reservation area.
Yeah, it's the reserved area. For
right,
the
but there's a
access
certain amount of
capacity.
water that was being used, wanting to be put aside for the mill
Right, so we're
redevelopment.
saving the 35,000 additional gallons a day for the mills. Unless I misinterpreted something, that was about put us at capacity.
I heard that.
If I could, I think what we're doing right now is going on we're pursuing aggressively to get additional water supply. That's going to involve a significant investment. I have, year after year, spoke to the Budget Committee and the Council from the day I arrived here, that we got to be as concerned, and should be as concerned, about the burden we put on the rate user, or the enterprise fund, as on the taxpayer. And as we pursue, and we spend, you know, and we're $3 million to put, you know, wells online. And if we do not, right now, constantly evaluate every project, like the one that's being proposed at the Quox, then we're forever closing our door to that rate base being, you know, subsidized there. Not necessarily subsidized, but contributing to the enterprise fund. It sounds great to have individuals drill wells to reduce your consumption. But keep in mind, as you reduce your consumption, unless you reduce your budget, you're still expending the same dollars. And what happens to that ratepayer is their bill goes up. It gets unaffordable for them. You know, it gets really expensive. And that's my concern. We got to be as concerned about expanding that base and providing that ability to expand, or we're going to break the backs not only of the property taxpayer, but the rate user. Because there's only, let's say, 1,000 rate users at this point in time. Don't quote me. But if you can't expand that...
Shouldn't we be adding them on an even keel and
Well-
not at the, not before we have the water?
Well, yes, but that's what I'm saying. I think on each project, we shouldn't just foreclose and say we can't do it. We do have some excess capacity right now because we are on an outside water ban. Remove that outside water ban and you don't, because your consumption goes up automatically in the summer months, a couple 100,000 gallons as a result of that.
So are you saying that we're gonna, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go ahead, and then Brian Hart.
So are you saying we're gonna continuously be on the stage 4 water ban so that
No,
we?
I'm hoping that we're going to hit the mother load.
So
that we're
until
gonna
we
have
hit, so
a
until we
solution to
hit
this.
additional water, your recommendation, because it's basically a council decision, but your
Mm-hmm.
recommendation is that we stay on the stage 4 water ban until we hit additional water source.
Probably that's a good posture at this point in time. If we knew what the weather was going to do, all this rain and everything like that, and we knew we were going to have that for the next year or so, then the answer is no.
It's managed the usage of water very well. I mean, a lot of people complain about it, but it has worked.
But-
Right, I mean, I agree that it's managed the water, but it also gives us a full sense of how much water we actually have, and it's basically telling everybody else to conserve their water so that we can give it to somebody else, which makes sense if we're just giving everybody drinking water and usable water, you know? But I think it's hard for people to understand that we're continually having a stage 4 water ban, but that we're hooking new people up to the system.
But we haven't hooked new people up to the system.
There's nothing stopping us from hooking new people up. That's why that's why the planning board has said we need some direction from the town council as far as can we hook new people up to the system.
The difficult part will be when we incur all this debt for the new source, and we have the same user base right now. The impact on those ratepayers is going to be very significant.
Right, I understand that part.
So, I guess, why wouldn't we want to, I mean, can we make it temporary? I'm just not comfortable adding people to the user base without gaining any more water. I can't make sense of that in my mind.
Well, Underwood gave a report a while ago as to how many additional units you could hook up, okay? I believe I've seen that. And it wasn't too long ago, so within the last 6 months or a year. To the extent we don't exceed that, I think you're okay. But, you know, like in the urban service boundary, you know, if you look at it right now, the mills probably won't be online for another 2 years, at best. Even if you've got a developer today, you know?
At least 2 years.
Yeah. We got to bank on the fact that we're moving forward. We're going to have a solution in 2 years. We're going to have more water. Hopefully, we're going to know we're going to have more water after we get this hydro fracture study analysis done within the next 3 months. And we're going to have to acquire land. And that should put us in a positive mode of building user base. Because if we don't, like I said, we're going to break the backs of those users. It's just used in mathematics.
And if they're using, why should
Counselor
they
Hart.
pay for it?
And Al and I have had this debate before because that's the motivation of the growth of cancer, which is that you need to keep growing in order to survive. And we can eventually we're not going to add any more users to the system. And if you're telling me that at that point the rate's just going to keep going and keep going up, I don't believe it. So it's a much more complex than that. It has to do with the regulations that keep coming out from the federal government. And at some point they're going to stop getting harder because I just think that's the nature. We've solved a lot of the serious problems. But I think we can't make the decisions, and I can't do it because I didn't know it was on the agenda to make, and I'm not saying anyone's suggesting that, but I think we need that Underwood report, which I don't recall seeing, at least in that form, or in that kind of summarization of what it said. And I need George Laney, or whoever is responsible for operating the water system, to tell me what they think it is, because I can't say that.
I agree.
have no idea.
I agree.
I know that when we drafted the ordinance that the planning board has put to legal review, we thought there was about 30,000 of excess capacity above, I think, the permits that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to save that for the mills. My answer would be there is no water based on that. That's the decision we made. I think it's pretty obvious because that's the decision we made. But I'm not sure why it would, So obviously we can have that discussion and get back to it, but I just think we need to have the information before us again before we can do that. And I'd hope that the planner would be able to make that formal request through the town administrator to us, so you don't have to do it. I mean,
That's why I thought that's when she
that's-
brought
No
it
one's
up, I thought it
contacted.
already had.
Roseanne's called me twice. I haven't heard from
And I read about it in the minutes,
Right.
so it's fine. It's a good point, and it's a good idea on Leo's part. I know he was pushing it in the minutes. I do agree to an extent that we should be adding users, but only if we have the water now, or that we think we can have it in the foreseeable future. And, that development's gonna take 1 to 2 years to build out from once it's permitted, so 19 houses is probably not gonna make an impact on the system.
In regards to, it's gonna get more lenient and,
I didn't say that, Al.
or it's gonna
Cannot
level off.
get, it cannot get perpetually more stringent forever.
I happened to sit in on a dinner meeting with the EPA Director of the Northeast, Bob Varney, and the discussion was we need relief either in the form of grant money to help with aging infrastructure or relief from regulation.
Yeah.
And guess what? There will be no relief in the immediate future on regulation. That was the message. So it's going to get continually stiffer as he.
Well, then Al, answer the question, how can we keep growing with users forever into the future?
Well,
that's what
obviously,
that's the
obviously,
logical
there's
argument.
going to be a point where you can't add any more users. You're going to be built out.
Right.
Okay. But then, at that point, the cost of regulation it doesn't go away. So it has to be absorbed by the existing users. So it's a snowball.
Counselor Jarvis?
So can we move this to a workshop?
Yep.
And have,
February workshop.
and it would be helpful to have, because I think there've been studies that are done, people read through them, and I think there's this general question of how much water do we have on a given day to give to somebody else? And that information should be readily available. If somebody comes into that information is readily available.
Yes, it is. I
and it
read
needs
those minutes, and it really was not accurate to say that George Laney doesn't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
He does.
What I'm saying though is that's the information we need to have when we're talking when we're talking
I
at
think
the
he's
workshop.
provided that.
To have that again when we're bringing this up again at the workshop.
Maybe not when Jen was on the council, though.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, I've listened to some of the planning board meetings, and
Right.
they joke about, well, if anyone knows. Well, I think the information has been provided as good as the
Right.
staff has.
And I think what the planning board is asking for is for that information to come from the town council. So whether it's come from the town council, that the town council has said, this is the information we believe to be true as to what our water capacity is. And then we can make a
I'm just-
decision on whether or not we can add more people on there. But that's a conversation that you need to have with the chair of the planning board or the town planner.
And I'm just confused because the planning board had all that information in order
Right,
to
when we
write the
came up with
ordinance.
the urban service boundary.
So,
Right, but what?
nothing's changed. We didn't add water. Nothing has changed.
So your recommendation is to go with the last information that they received in order to come up with
It's
the
less
urban
than a
service
year old.
boundary.
What has changed perhaps is the time frame in which there'll be a drawdown or a need for a drawdown with the mills.
Right,
Yeah,
that,
'cause
that's
we were
it.
Right.
fast-tracked before.
And the
so-
other thing that's been looking, that Clay is looking into is how many people have actually, because what was considered in that urban service boundary was the number of permits that were out, that could potentially be
There's very
issued.
few of them left.
Right, to figure out
So
who
they've
still had
been
them.
used or,
Right.
There's been a lot of building on Cherry Hill.
Yeah.
New building. Right? There's-
Counselor Glennon?
On the Cherry Hill, though, weren't those grandfathered as part of Chase?
That's
Those
what I mean
were-
by outstanding
Some were.
permits.
They're
yes.
outstanding.
There's a few up there that have not been paid, so
Al,
they aren't
I
grandfathered.
think a couple of years ago, the council was invited to a workshop at the planning board. That was before you came on. And somehow or other, I was the only one that attended it. And I sat there in the back and I listened to the whole conversation about the water, how much water permits we had and all that. And I remember specifically the town planner saying, I don't know. I got up, I asked, if you are the town planner and your job is to plan for the needs of this town, how would it be that you don't know how many water permits that are out there? His response to that was, he had been trying for months to get that information. So wait a minute now, I saw you the next day, and I asked you how many there were, and you had said to me, the town planner has that. I reiterated what he had said to me, and you were kind of puzzled on that yourself, and you got the information and gave me a call a couple of days later and told me what it was.
Dana, I don't get
What
this
I'm
because
getting
we
at-
we know now
All
how
right,
many
what
there
I'm
are.
getting at is what Jen was saying earlier. I believe the town planner should have that information on a regular basis when he comes to a planning board meeting. And
Well-
that's something that's not been done.
If the
and I
town
don't know
planner
why.
doesn't have it, he needs to communicate it, and he could tell me, but right now, I believe that he has had that, or they have had that,
Well, he
because
has
I've seen
with-
it so
with
many
that,
times.
probably.
And I did provide it for you, you know,
Mhm.
so it's available.
I just found it was strange that he didn't have it. And
And
here
it's
we are
not like,
back
if
today.
we
We're certainly
had
not trying to keep it
300
from you.
outstanding permits and 27 of them
Yeah.
have applied and hooked up, that means there's 273 left.
Well, no, what Underwood in that report in the final analysis, they already accounted for that, for what was out there.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Dana wants to know how many, or thinks the
Right,
town
okay.
planner should know how many of the outstanding permits have been, but you know what, this isn't even a
Tomorrow morning at the staff
discussion.
meeting, I will certainly find out if he doesn't know and why he doesn't, because it's available.
I'm sure he does.
So do we even have to workshop this? Because it sounds like the message that I'm getting is the council feels that we have the same amount of water we had when you wrote the urban service boundaries.
I think the planning board has enough information. We don't have any new information except for what Brian mentioned.
So you got a little freeboard there, and I would think that we would have in 2 years the supply issue addressed.
Because
So
if
we
we
do
don't
have
have
to
the mill, I mean, the mills,
Sounds like,
yeah, and I think that you would want to get input from the NCDC, because they might say, well, we understand that the project's not moving forward in the time frame originally envisioned, but we want to be able to talk to a developer and say there's water available, and the reservation did that.
Yeah.
So it's about where the town's economic
I would
priorities
say
are.
that 35,000 gallons is spoken for.
But yeah, I think we should
Go
workshop
further
it again.
okay.
Did you say yes or no?
I think we should. It'd probably be good for us to have it all in front of us again, so it's all fresh, so
Yeah.
so when we get asked, and
It removes that myth that it's not there, that it's not available.
Right.
there's been a lot of reports, so I can see why people get confused.
Okay. Last thing, anybody else?
I just wanted to report something
Sure.
that I know it's been asked here before by Wilford, so that today the Land Trust, the Rockingham Land Trust, announced that we have successfully raised all the money to complete the Piscasset Greenway project, which is partially in Newmarket over by Shannon Drive, and the rest of it's in Newfield. So it's pretty exciting for me personally, but also I think for the town of Newfields and for Newmarket as well. And so there's probably be press articles tomorrow in some of the local papers, and you can learn more about it at our website. I just thought that that's something.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you were nervous there for a little while.
Yeah, it was definitely not a given. Not a given.
Good one.
Just one thing, Martha McNeil, I saw her in Shaw's the other day on Saturday, and we were chatting, and as I walked away, she said, "I go to bed with you, you know." Waved to me, and I promised her we'd say goodnight, so good night, Martha.
Good night, Martha.
That's great.
All right, so, motion to enter into non-public. Oh, what?
Yeah, I got a little news business, new business, if you don't mind. As you know, I missed the last meeting, and ironically, the bandstand subject came up. Am I mistaken?
Right.
By a Mr. Hamlin? Was he here?
Mr. Who?
Yeah,
Hamlin.